Terrific.
Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Today I'm super excited. I have Aaron Hale on the podcast. I actually met you through our good buddy Richard Kaufman. He's introduced a ton of really cool people to this show. Um, Instead of me trying to explain your story, because you have a very unique story, I'm going to let you tell people a little bit about who you are, what you
Yeah,
do, and who you help.
absolutely. Hey, thanks for welcoming me on, Joseph.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. My life is eclectic. So, definitely not a straight line. It's definitely a circuitous path. But yeah, my name is Aaron Hale. I'm a former Navy cook turned Army bomb technician, which is definitely a big course correction. I call myself a Narmy sailor. But yeah, I tell people after I got my first confirmed kill with an egg roll, I decided to start saving lives instead. But yeah, my first deployment was as a cook. I went from cooking for a three-star admiral in Gaeta, Italy, to running an army chow hall in the desert of Afghanistan. That's when I met some EOD technicians, explosive ordnance disposal. These are the military's bomb squad, the guys that take care of those roadside bombs. So I met these guys, and I was everything clicked. Uh, the tight-knit brotherhood, the technical aspect of the job, and the fact that they're first responders, lifesavers on the battlefield. Those are the guys that walk in when everybody's running out.
Mhm.
So, absolutely. Uh, so I switched uniforms and switched jobs, and had a couple more deployments. And then in 2011, I uh, I was about 8 months into a 12-month deployment again to Afghanistan, but this time as an EOD team leader, the guy that actually gets in the bomb suit and makes that long walk.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, while I was working on one ID, there was a secondary device nearby that detonated and I took my eyesight. So I'm 100% blind. My eyes now are prosthetics. And what happened in the blast was that I, uh, not only did I lose my eyes, but it cracked my skull in a few places to where I was leaking spinal fluid right out of my sinuses, out my nose.
Oh, wow.
So that had to get patched up. And I guess either it wasn't completely patched or maybe it opened up. But almost 4 years later, I contracted bacterial meningitis through the cracks. So it was like a bacteria got straight into my brain. And that nearly killed me. I was back in the hospital again after 4 years of learning how to be 100% blind. But while I survived, obviously, uh, in the process, the bacteria, the meningitis, it stole what was left of my hearing that the blast hadn't taken. So it
Mm.
left me 100% deaf. The only reason I'm not pulling the full Helen Keller right now is because of this one cochlear implant, which is not a hearing aid, doesn't amplify sound down the ear canals because those are turned off.
Mhm.
It's actually an implant, and it sends a digital signal to my auditory nerve. It's definitely not like the real thing, but it's way better than the alternative. It's kind of
Right.
like now between the blindness and the deafness, it's kind of like trying to figure out what's going on in the kitchen through the drive-through speaker. But I appreciate what I've got.
No, I get
Uh,
that. I get that. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your service. I love the story because it was like you were, and it's kind of interesting in my head because it's like you were a cook in Italy for an admiral, or I think you said an admiral, a three-star admiral. And all of a sudden you end up getting a deployment to Afghanistan and you see these guys running toward, the danger instead of running away, and something clicked and you said, I want to do this. And then you stepped into doing it. And now you've gone through a bunch of trauma and craziness because of that, because you were willing to try to save lives, which I super love. And now you're at the point where, when I was looking at your website and everything, you are speaking, helping people. still running to go and help protect people as much as you can. So I kind of like see the parallel. But tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now. Because like I love your story, but there's so much more to you than just that aspect. So I want to hear a little bit more about who you're helping, what you're doing now.
It took me so long to get it through my thick head. Maybe it took the blast to implant something else, which was this realization that the discomfort is where all the growth happens. I was really good at being apathetic, lazy, sitting back on my natural talents and abilities and a little BS to get by without having to try very hard. So I was a BC student in school. I went to college. That didn't work, so I left. Actually, it was kind of a mutual thing. They didn't want me back.
I
Uh,
hear you. I'm with you.
and it was very embarrassing. I wasted tuition. I got, kicked out of school, and I had to change my life. I had to figure out that work ethic, uh, those internal skills of appreciating a hard day's work for the hard work itself, and the pride and accomplishment, that kind of stuff. And I also needed to get the tuition money back somehow. So the military would give me the hard work, obviously,
Mhm.
and I get the GI Bill also. So the plan was 4 years and out, right? And go the 14 years later, uh, here I am. But yeah, not now, 14 years, but what I'm saying is
Mhm.
I fell in love with it, and I accidentally picked up some of these extrinsic values, not just those internal things, but the pride in service, in duty, and working for a team, and that greater sense of just yourself. And so I loved being in the Navy, I loved being a sailor. I always loved cooking. What I found after a certain level I'd achieved that I wasn't being fulfilled.
Mhm.
And I also realized that I wasn't serving the military in the best capacity I could. And that's when EOD came along and it kind of it checked all those boxes. So, then all that being said, and, coming up to, a little more contemporary times, I I'd begun stepping into the person I was supposed to be by accepting the challenges ahead. And then, just when I was starting to hit my stride, I'd get injured and I'm blinded and I'm there in the hospital going, okay, my life is over.
Mhm.
Right? I can't do this, I can't do that. Why me? What if? All that kind of stuff. The kind of questions they don't have any answer. They're just kind of the spiral into darkness. Not, no pun intended. But yeah, it took realization that I had some hard work ahead of me, and then a whole lot of support from some terrific people to turn my attitude around. And it became about the work. It
Mhm.
became about how can I rather than I can't. And so I started learning how to be blind first. I had picked up this great attitude, and I started, well, for one, running, like you'd mentioned. I started
Mhm.
running marathons because, well, frankly, I was terrified of being stuck on the couch.
Yeah.
Right? Stuck more so defined by my disability. I wanted to show my kids that dad could still do anything, and so could I,
Mhm.
right? So if my dad can go run marathons without even looking, well, I don't want them to run around without looking, but I wanted them to realize that all it took was their effort.
Mhm.
you know. So I started running marathons, but then in 2015 is when the meningitis struck, and I was right back in the hospital. And then I got back home. Not only did I lose my hearing, my eyesight, but I'd also lost my vestibular balance, that inner ear gyro.
Mhm.
So I came home in a wheelchair. and I couldn't get on my treadmill because it was like somebody was trying to steal that from under me. So I had a hard work ahead of me. And
Hmm.
yeah, I went through this period of that dark place again, those demons, that self-doubt and anger and all that kind of stuff. But I turned back to cooking. And it was Thanksgiving time, and I decided instead of worrying about all the stuff that I'd lost and all all the bad stuff, I'd take the focus off of me
Hmm.
and I would turn it on others. And I started cooking again. And I made this huge feast. I started cooking weeks in advance. And I was totally deaf, totally blind. I could still cook. And I started making desserts, cakes, pies, all that kind of stuff. And I just put it in the freezer until the day. And I was making batch after batch of fudge. My
Uh-huh.
girlfriend at the time, my wife now, noticed two things. One was uh, the fudge was piling up, and two, I had a smile on my face.
Hmm.
The what she did with the fudge is she started sneaking it out the front door, like you had to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. But she was giving it away, and people started
Hmm.
coming back and saying, "Hey, can we buy some more of this fudge for a birthday party, a shower, whatever?"
Hmm.
And the capitalist in me said, "Well, of course you
Yep.
may." Before we knew it, we had a business, Extraordinary Delights, and EOD Fudge
Hmm.
for short. And
I like to play on words. I do. Dude, that I know there's more to it, but I want to point out some key points that you said that people need to listen to. You were hit with stuff that was beyond your control, that a lot of people would have just sat on the couch and didn't do anything. You were doing a half or a full marathon. Like, full disclosure, I'm doing a half marathon in September or into August, September. It's the second time I'm doing it. I've
awesome.
never done a full marathon yet. The fact that you, after going through that, are doing something that like 1% of the entire world even does, it's pretty cool. Like that's epic. I love your motivation behind it. You're like, I don't want to just be a couch potato. I don't want to just be stuck on that. And then you had another roadblock hit you, and that wasn't able to be done at that point. So then you start cooking and create a business. But if you're thinking of it from like a waking up to a life you love living or an entrepreneurial idea, when hard times hit, you have two choices. Either you can cave or you can respond and rise. And every time I've heard you through just this little bit we've gotten to talk of you responding and rising to the occasion. Okay, cool. This isn't working out. I'm going to find something else. Where did you get that drive from? Because you said earlier that you were lazy and not that motivated to begin with, got kicked out of school, but now you're getting hit with things that would crush most people and you're just finding new different ways to enjoy and build your life.
Well, certainly a lot of that came from my military experience, the training, deployments. I think it was uh, Jim Mattis, General Mattis, the book Call Sign Chaos. He said, uh, things being hard were never a good excuse for mission failure. So there's an example I use from EOD. Generally, EOD teams are three people strong, one team leader, two team members, and we get this shipping container full of tools for everything that goes boom. Everything from bullets to nuclear weapons. We're the first responders, so we got to be able to have the right tool at the right time. But then
Hmm.
we go on deployment. We've got this armored truck that's not as big as a armored truck's not as big as a shipping container, so we got to do a bit of a triage. So we leave some tools behind. We still got a job to do, and mission failure is not uh, not acceptable. And then I get to Afghanistan, and there aren't any roads at all. It's all like goat trails and dirt
Hmm.
paths. So guess what? We're on foot, and the only tools we can bring are what we can carry on our back and what we've got locked inside our heads. The resources at our hands, our team members, and whatever we can call up on the radio. So whatever we find ahead, whatever goes boom, we still got to accomplish the mission so that others might be able to carry on their missions. And that's the way I looked at it. So I left a couple tools behind, my eyes, my ears. I'm still a dad.
Hmm.
I'm still a soldier at heart. I'm a wounded veteran, and there's a community there. I'm a blind person, there's a community there. So I've got these associations that I'm responsible to and for,
Hmm.
especially my family. So I have an ethical imperative to be my absolute best, and I can't use excuses.
I love that. And I want everyone listening, when you're crying about having to do a 12-hour day or crying about having to do whatever you want to insert, to listen to this. Because especially, and I'm going to talk to the men for a little bit here because again, I do talk harder to men than women. That's call me sexist. I don't care. You have a duty to do stuff for your family and stand up. And what Aaron just laid out there was 100% ownership. No giving in to the excuses. And I commend you for that because most people would have folded, but you took the training, you took the experience, you took the what you learned on the even if it's hard, it doesn't mean we don't do the job or get it done, even if there's stress or chaos or whatever. And that is a skill that is very few and far between because most people fold under the first sign of pressure and you wave after wave just keep going. So I commend you for that because I've talked to over 250 people on my podcast. I've been on other podcasts. I've been in the sales game and in business game for a long time. And that drive you have there is one of the keys I see in most people that actually succeed because it's not about being perfect. It's about rising to the occasion. So I love that, Aaron.
Okay, well, you just mentioned the sales, and in one of the semesters, in between the semesters, I was still in college. I actually, I did door-to-door sales. I don't know if you're familiar with the Southwestern Company, the study guide books, but I walked around a small town in Maryland for a summer selling books door to door. And one of the things I learned from that was that you got to get through the nose, right? All those failures, and you just check them off like a box. If you get 1 out of 10 doors is a yes, I got to check off 9 no's to get
Mm-hmm.
there. So it's about prospecting. And I use that in my life. Okay, so that method or whatever it is I'm doing, that didn't work. What did I learn from that? How can I use it towards the next attempt? So it's, failure after failure, but you get up, you keep moving, and you keep learning because you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to learn anything from your successes. But pain, there's a ton of information in pain, failure, falling down. And so long as you're willing to listen and learn, that's how I look at everything. Everything's a challenge, an opportunity. Every time it doesn't work, I just try to learn from it and keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, I love that. Again, there's another gold nugget for you because really you definitely 100% learn from failure. I've been in sales 20 years. I've done over 10,000 calls. I've been told no more in a day than probably what most people get told in a week, month, or a lifetime. But like you said, you learn. I've done door-to-door sales. I commend you for that because if you can do door-to-door sales, you can do pretty much any sale because going out to grandma's house and getting her to buy cable or books or anything is not an easy task. So I commend you for that. I'm sure you
Getting
have some
chased away
interesting
by a
stories.
baseball bat.
Yep. Baseball bat, guns. Dogs did. That was the thing that was always seemed to be that was good for me. For some reason, dogs really love me. So like they'd even have mean dogs, and the dog would run up to me and want me to pet him. And like my dog doesn't like anyone. I'm like, oh, dogs are a good judge of character. And I would pet their dog, and that's how I get them to talk to me. Like you said, you got to find any way you can be adaptable. Um, I did see on your website. So did you do an ultra marathon as well?
Yes, yes. After I did a comeback, I guess comeback marathon after losing my hearing. Remember I said I'd
Mhm.
lost my eyesight. 4 years later, I lost my hearing, I lost my balance, and I had to get out of the wheelchair. I had to get up on my feet. And at first, I was a whitewater kayaker, a mountaineer. I loved getting outside and doing the adventures. And here I was. I had to take the trekking poles that I was using to walk to get climb up mountains, to hike up these mountains. I started using those to do this weird like crab walk thing down to my mailbox and back. And that's how I started walking again after the meningitis. I would go down to the mailbox, come back, I'd be exhausted. But the next time I'd go a little further. I'd go down the road to the next driveway and to come back. And eventually I got back on my treadmill. I'd hold on to that stability bar with an
Mhm.
iron grip, and I would just hit the quick start, like half a mile an hour, and just start walking. But then eventually I started picking up the pace. And I started to learn how to use other ways to balance my muscles and sense of touch and all that. And 1 year after coming out of the hospital, I ran my hometown marathon, Akron Marathon, on my same week as my high school 20th reunion. And after that, I it was like a decision point. Should I go try to go faster in a marathon? Well, maybe I could go further.
Mhm.
So I picked a big goal, a really big goal. Uh, in fact, the world's toughest foot race, Badwater 135. But it's 135 miles from the lowest point in North America to the Badwater Basin to the Mount Whitney portal, basically the trailhead to the tallest point in the lowest 48, the lower 48.
Oh, wow.
And it's over two mountain ranges, 135 miles, and it is hot, up to 130 degrees in the middle of July. So, and also I had to run at least three 100 milers just to qualify.
Mhm.
So I started running ultras. I started going further. And
Wow.
in 2023, I became the first deaf blind person to complete Badwater 135.
That is badass. That is crazy. Like, I know what it takes. And again, I'm not blind. I'm not deaf. I'm 48, but like I know what it takes to train even for a half marathon. I used to run across country. Like I've done that stuff before. But the fact that you are doing ultra marathons, three over 100 miles, just so you can qualify for the hardest race to do that. There was it just the military that helped you get this drive? Was there something else involved? Because like you have a drive that most people don't, because you just went from 1% to probably 0.02% of people that have ever done an ultra marathon in the world. Like, so this intrigues me. Like, I know that you make it sound so simple, but what you're accomplishing is not simple. Like for anyone in general, like very few people will ever run an ultra marathon, and very few will run the one you mentioned, the bad. I'm going to say it wrong. Badlands, bad.
I'll have to disagree with you there.
Oh, good. Please do.
The saying, simple, not easy. It is
Yep.
simple. It is. All I got to do is run. But how do you accomplish any challenge, any mission? You just do it step by step. And you set a goal. And I set a goal and you know, backward engineered this thing. I got a coach and I I put in the miles and I would do it. I would focus on it every single day. I would take the steps I needed today to accomplish the mission in so many months. And that's the same way you accomplish any goal. You just have to have focused, consistent effort.
Mm, yeah. No, yeah, you're right. I think I'm just thinking because again, I'm doing training for the half and it's hard. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's not the easiest thing to go out and do the run and do the thing. But if I wanted to do a full, I just need to actually do the full program instead of the half. If I want to do an ultra, I just need to do it, but then we get in our heads. I think as humans we do this. But you said, no, I just keep it simple. This is my goal. I'm gonna do it. Most people
That's what's
don't do that.
so yeah, well, that's what's so funny is that I'll get stopped walking off of an airplane and somebody will say, "You are such an inspiration." Like, why? Because I would find my way out of a tube. Uh you know
Yeah.
That people don't realize that, but that's not much of an accomplishment. But they see the blindness that's right written on my injuries, my disabilities are written right on my face. So just getting out of bed for them might be they see despair, they see hardship, and they imagine they can't do it. But for me, it's just what is,
Hmm.
right? It's just my life. And it's not something to be pitied. I live a fantastic life. I love my children. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I get to host my own podcast. I've got a couple businesses now with the fudge and vacation rentals and all that kind of stuff. And I'm living a fantastic life. I get to run these ultra marathons and I don't want pity. I don't want people to
Hmm.
think I'm an inspiration because I got out of bed.
Yeah.
Or I
Yeah.
found my way off a tube, a flying, cylinder.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is, follow the traffic. Uh, but for me, I do want to be an inspiration for those who are having trouble getting out
Hmm.
of bed, those who are having trouble feeling like they're in a rut, they're stuck because you're not stuck. It's just not focused.
Hmm.
All you gotta do is find that purpose or create the purpose. And you don't need, like Doug G says, Jordan Grumet, he's got the purpose code and he says the big P and the little p purpose. You don't, everybody gets wrapped around the axle on the big P purpose. What all you need to get you going is a little p purpose. It
Hmm.
just, and for me, it's it's staying healthy, it's earning a living, it's taking care, being a great dad and taking care of my kids.
Yeah, no, I love that. And like I'm sitting here thinking of sales and I do all the little steps I need to do to win the President's Circle Awards, all the different things I've done in it. And in my mind, when you said that, I'm thinking in the parallel of people are like, well, how did you accomplish this? And I'm like, I just did the work. And that's what I'm hearing you say. I just did the work. And in every high achiever, real high achievers, not the fake Lambo people that rent stuff and fake things, they have the
Hmm.
ability to make things simple, like you said, and just do it consistently over time till they get the results they want. And then, like you said, also those times you run into failure, but you just fail forward and learn and grow from there. No, I love that aspect of it. I think you're an inspiration. I think sometimes, and for me, I was just thinking of I know what it's like to try and run and do that. So whether or not you were blind or deaf, it's the running part that I was like, holy crap, that's a long, badass race just in my head. Not the fact, but and then adding the other things in. But for you, you're like, no, this is who I am. This is my life. I love that. Like, it's again, you just are building a life you love living. And I think society puts rules or thoughts on things too much, when in reality, we get to vote for what we want to do. Who do we want to be?
Hmm.
Who do we want to show up for? So I love that, Aaron.
And, a lot of those things, like you were talking about, when you look at a goal you've never accomplished before, running a half marathon to running a marathon to running an ultra marathon, for example, it's like a math problem, right? It's KPIs. What if you have $1,000 sales day? What would it look like if you added a zero to that? What would you, it's about how many calls you make. It's how many leads you get into the funnel or whatever you want, whatever that KPI is. What would it take to multiply it by 10? Would it take a team? Would it take extra prospecting calls or whatever? But it's just math.
Hmm.
So for me, it was going from a marathon to an ultra marathon was math. I had to train more miles. I had to to change my diet in a certain manner. I had to do this or that. And sometimes it takes a mentor, a coach, a team. And for that, I definitely needed an expert team, an expert coach, and I found them. And I found smarter people than me, more capable people than me to help me get across the finish line.
Hmm. No, I love that. Yeah, I think coaches and getting the right coach is imperative. Like I've hired a few, but I'm very selective because again, I want to make sure they know what they're doing, not they just got a course online and decided to become a coach. Like,
You
I
know,
think there's so much. I think that's, well, let me ask you this because you mentioned it. How do you determine who you would have coach you? What is your criteria?
well, that's a great example. Sticking with the ultra marathons and Badwater, uh, my coach, her name's Lisa Smith Batchen, and she's actually completed that course. That's her race. Is she not like officially her race, but like that's her bread and butter race. That she's completed that course 11 times, 10 times officially. That's she was run from Las Vegas to the starting line. She and she did, I forget what it's called, the double devil or something like that.
Oh,
But
wow.
she ran, so Badwater, it ends about 11 miles from the actual peak of Mount Whitney because you need a permit. Then the park system only gives out so many permits. So
Got you.
it actually ends at the trailhead, not the actual top of, tallest point. So at 135, it's ending at the trailhead.
Hmm.
She ran the full 146 all the way to the top of the mountain. And let me tell you, the last 13 miles of that race to the trailhead, that alone is the toughest half marathon I've ever run.
Hmm.
Because it's just straight up the side of a mountain. But she ran 146 miles, turned around and ran back to the starting line, and then did it again, two times down and back. That's the person, and she's run it actually officially 10 times, like I said.
Hmm.
Her race bib, lucky number seven, was retired by the course director, the race director.
Uh-huh.
And then it was brought out of retirement so I could wear it.
That
But
is cool.
that's the coach that I got to help me get across most of my finish
Mhm.
lines.
No, I love that. And you laid out some more very amazing criteria. You wanted to do that race. She was the expert in that race to the point that she had done it and then did a double one. Like, this is the
Hmm.
person that knows every in and out of that race. So it makes it perfect in that regard. And I
Absolutely right.
think, yeah, I think that's the key people need to understand. Like, if someone came to me and say, "Hey, help me build my business," I'm like, no, I can't help you because I'm not a business coach. But if they said, hey, help me set up a selling system for my business, now I can help them. And then we can even take it deeper. I'm good at prospecting to CEOs, CFOs, and C suite, and I am really good in B2B at follow up. So, like, I know what I'm really good at. I can coach people that way. The problem is I think when we have people that are too vague in what they're coaching, because you could have had someone else train
Hmm.
you to run an ultra, but if they had never run that race, they can't prepare you for the
Hmm.
obstacles you're going to find in that race. So I loved how you laid that out because I think that's the distinct key.
There's another thing about getting coaches or mentors. You don't always need the absolute number one expert in everything, in what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes you just need the person who's a few steps ahead of you,
Hmm.
uh, especially when you're just getting started. Before I found Coach Lisa, I found a local coach. She'd run so many marathons herself and became a running coach. But she was perfect for what I needed at the time.
Hmm.
And she got me from zero to one. And then
Yeah.
once I started finding my feet, so to speak, then I started looking for, people with more expertise that could help me get further. So I think it's you don't have to aim for the swing for the fences. Sometimes all you need is a base hit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big baseball fan. No, I love that. And I think it's like what you're saying. You need to have someone that has some experience for what you're doing at that time. So like when you were doing the half and then the full, your first coach worked well. When you wanted to get into the ultra marathon, you're like, hey, I would need to upgrade,
Hmm.
not upgrade like that. Your coach was bad. Don't take that wrong. But the other one had more experience in the next level where you were going. But yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not saying that you need to always have the best person. You just have to have the best person for you. That's legit. I just always want to make sure they have some experience in it because, like, I'm not going to take a 17-year-old life coach, and I'm not going to take a someone that I don't feel has the experience to help me get there. I think that's it's just vetting it out in my mind. What can they get me? And I'm not saying like that a 17-year-old doesn't have any life experience. It's just I'm 48. I'm probably not going to relate to them, but maybe a
Mhm.
teenager would relate to them in that regard. I don't know.
But there's also, there's other components. Like, and it's the same with becoming an entrepreneur or expert salesperson or whatever the endeavor is getting a team around you, help finding people that can, cover down on your weak points, right? Sometimes you don't have to get stronger in your weak points. Maybe it's about delegating. It's about teaming up, partnering with somebody who complements you. When obviously I'm never going to be able to see well enough to run a straight line. So I have to get team members, a crew that will guide me.
Mhm.
I need running guides. And that's part of the great thing. It's like two sides of a coin. It's definitely not in my best is in my best uh, it, it's excuse me it's not a very healthy safe thing for me to do is just lace up and step out the front door and go for a run.
Mhm.
So it I need somebody to run with. Yeah, so everything in my life becomes a team sport. But on the flip side, everything in my life becomes a team sport. And I get to run with somebody every time I go outside.
Yeah.
I get these great people around me who can see the road ahead of me better than I can. And sometimes they're the ones that are pushing my pace a little bit further, a little bit, they know how I can perform. And maybe I might be sitting back on my laurels a little bit, taking it easy. And they help become my accountability partners, all that kind of stuff. And the same with business. Yeah, so I'm not going to do the finances. I'm not going to do the books, the taxes, that kind of stuff. In fact, a spreadsheet is like playing Minesweeper on the computer for me. I hate them. I used to
Mhm.
teach Excel. Hate it now. If we being blind guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, I let somebody else do it. I've got a team. I've got people I hire to do the things that will take me too long or I just hate doing.
Mhm. Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah, and there's the thing about like being around other people that are doing it, joining a running club or a mastermind for real estate investing. I do this stuff because I learn from them. I get inspired and motivated by them, and I can do the same in return. So there's so many different ways to get out of your rut, to get moving, to build that momentum. So it's not just about me uh, having motivation or discipline. It's about making it a lot easier, a lot simpler, and creating a world where a blind deaf guy can run 135 miles across Death Valley, or start a business, or invest in real estate, or get on multiple stages all over the country and talking about all that other stuff.
Yeah. No, I love that. Let's shift to that a little bit because we haven't really gotten into your public speaking or the real estate aspect. Do you help people? Like, do you coach with that, or are you just personally investing on the real estate side?
I do invest with others. I partner with others. A lot of what I do is our own personal strategy is we do burster. You know, uh, it's like fix and flip, except we keep it and we turn it into short-term rentals. So huge value add, refinance it, and then turn them into instead of long-term, short-term. And while where I partner with others, I partner with wholesalers that bring me great deals. I partner with private money lenders, people with maybe money that's not really going anywhere in their IRAs. I show them how to turn them into self-directed IRAs, and they can invest in more things than just index funds and individual
Hmm.
stocks. And also, I do help in various communities, but I'm not coaching. that
Gotcha. Gotcha.
when I get on stage, I'm mostly talking about well, much of what we've already discussed here. You know,
Mhm.
motivation, inspiration, and how to become productive despite, challenges.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we're not done, but I want to just drop this here because it's a good segue. Where can people find you at? And we'll drop in the show notes for them as well.
Well, you can always find me and my my past episodes on pointofimpactpod.com, and I'm on all of the major podcast platforms and YouTube. The Point of Impact with Aaron Hale.
Awesome. No, I love that. I know we've talked about a lot of stuff, and as we're starting to kind of land the plane, I want to make sure to give you space to. Was there anything that we hadn't talked about that you wanted to bring up or leave for our listeners?
Well, I still have a few dates open for 2025, and I'm already scheduling for 2026. So if any event organizers are looking for a speaker, then you can also find me through those various podcast platforms or the website, and I can be contacted there.
Awesome. No, I love that. Aaron, give us one last piece of advice, word of wisdom, however you want to do it, for the listeners that maybe they're struggling to achieve their goals, or maybe they're achieving their goals but want to develop a team, whatever you want to go with there.
Well, one of the things that is always stuck in my head, I don't know where I read it or heard it in a meme, probably on Facebook, but it's always stuck in my head. And it's, someday the story of your struggle may be the blueprint for someone else's survival. And like I mentioned earlier, you only need to find somebody a couple steps ahead of you to get a little further, but it's uh, it's paying it forward. You also got to go back, look back, and help bring others along with you. So look back to who needs that next step that you already know, and it's this the kind of abundance that we should be living in.
I love that. Aaron, thank you for being on the show. And like he said, go
Thank you for
forward.
having me.
Yeah, definitely. Love having you on. Go forward and be the person you need to be and find someone that can help you away because you can go farther as a team than you can on your own. Until next time, get after it.